The weather in San Diego is heating up, and crowds are flocking to the beach.
We got a lot of people on the beach today. It's a very sunny day. We're busier than normal.
More people mean more rescues, starting at Wind and Sea, where lifeguards rush to medevac an injured surfer.
If they had moved their neck even 1/4 of an inch either direction, then they could have been paralyzed.
While at Mission Beach, the lifeguards race against time to locate a young man fighting to stay above water.
There was a very severe glare, and if we can't see the victim, then we can't rescue him.
And when the day comes to a close, a swimmer is reported missing.
We call it the golden hour, for someone to have a chance to be revived.
But they're racing against both time and the sunset.
We have a general direction, but we have no real knowledge of whether he went to some direction unknown to us, so the area was expansive.
Then, a deep water rescue that lifeguards won't soon forget.
Most time fatalities, you find them on the bottom, so I was concentrating on looking on the bottom. But as I turned, something caught my eye, and I looked up, and the individual was suspended above me about 10 feet.
In a typical Southern California summer, sunshine is never in short supply. And the rays beating down on San Diego today have temperatures going up, way up. This is something Lifeguard Sergeant Ed Harris has been keeping an eye on.
We got a lot of people on the beach today. It's a very sunny day. It's very hot inland. It's 100 degrees. It feels like it's probably 80 plus on the coast. And it's a weekend and there's swell. So all those combined for weather mean that we're busier than normal.
The waves at Wind and Sea Beach are packed. However, all the lifeguards here know that when the waves are crowded, danger is just around the corner.
Wind and Sea to 3 Sam. We have a surfer accident. 2 parties collided in the water. 1 was injured. He's out of the water. Possible head and neck injuries. We will be taking C-spine precautions.
Lifeguards do a lot of C-spine. We do, at every beach, we do several every summer. And it's something we train for hard, both in the water and outside the water, just because of the consequences for not doing it right are really catastrophic.
Sergeant Harris begins to make his way to Wind and Sea, one of many areas under the command of the San Diego lifeguard veteran.
You know, I grew up in Orange County, going to the beach, 25 cents a day on the Orange County transit bus, you know, with my brothers and my brother, and you know, spent a lot of time in aquatics, in the pool and stuff like that. When I was 18 years old, I joined the Marines. And while I was in the Marines, I taught water survival. I was a scuba instructor and a water survival instructor. In order to be comfortable doing the job that we do, you pretty much have to have grown up in the water, preferably a lot of time in the ocean. And it's a mindset that allows you to remain calm and allow you to just relax and deal with it, because panic kills more people in the water than anything else. And so they really drill into you, don't panic.
At Wind and Sea, the lifeguards now have the injured surfer's neck immobilized with a C-collar.
You remember what happened? The guy was going left and just kept on going right into me, ran me over.
When I arrived on this call, they had a C-collar on him, and they were making a decision on how they were going to get him on the backboard. It's typical for us to go ahead with full immobilization. It's not uncommon that we get word back from the hospital that they had a severe fracture, and if they had moved their neck even 1/4 of an inch either direction, then they could have been paralyzed. Beautiful, gentlemen.
All right, we're gonna slide them up a little bit. 1, 2, 3.
We're not doctors, we don't put them back together, but we stop any more damage from happening, we stabilize them, we package them, and we get them to the people that know what they're doing.
Even with the increased crowds on the coast, the rest of the afternoon is business as usual for the lifeguards. As the end of the day approaches, the gorgeous weather is setting the stage for a beautiful sunset. But for lifeguards, it's also creating a blinding glare, making it more difficult to see the swimmers still in the water. With a higher vantage point, guards in the main tower spot a swimmer struggling in the water.
He didn't show any signs that he was a non-swimmer, none, until he just went from 0 to 60 in about 1 second and completely panicked. Started to climb the ladder, managed to get a few hands up here and there, probably just to try to alert us, although we were clearly aware of his plight.
Would you like to dispatch? Dispatch. Set a surfboat, code 3, Mission Beach for a rescue. Rescue West, code 3 to Mission Beach for a rescue. Yeah, for done. Rescue West en route.
The closest lifeguard on the beach is Shiloh Spangler.
He was right off the tower to the south. I took a board and went out. When I got out there, I went, oh no, he's not there.
It was hard to locate him once you got into the water just because of the wave action. There's a swell running, and so you can't see him consistently because the ocean is bumpy and rolled. He was almost bobbing.
Unbeknownst to Spangler, the victim was swept 50 yards north from the point last seen.
Lincoln, could you use any resources from PP? Can you send a vehicle? One vehicle, code 3, right side of the tower. Got a rescue. Looks like the person may submerge before the lifeguards get there. Copy. Responding 1 unit, code.
While the lifeguards in the tower can see the victim on the verge of submerging, Spangler is still unable to see that the young man has been pulled to the north. Lieutenant Lerma gets as many units as possible on the rescue.
TSAM dispatch, medics to the Mission Beach main tower. Dispatch copies medics to the Mission Beach tower. Possible near drowning.
All of the lifeguards' eyes are on the water scanning for the swimmer, but the glare is extremely bright.
There was a very severe glare, and if we can't see the victim, then we can't rescue him.
Dispatch copies rescue west, rescue south, staging a mission. Dispatch 2 Sammy's got engine 21, medic 21 responding, oceanfront walk. Your guards are on scene, they have the victim. We're going to bring him in, have the medics respond to Mission Beach tower for evaluation.
We're going to get you up to the tower, okay? Just go ahead, just put him right in this truck, just take him up to the tower. All right, go ahead, get to the other side. Okay? Was anybody else out there with you?
No.
This was as close as it gets because he was in a state of distress. He was drowning for a good minute.
We got him on the board, we brought him in. He was tired, but I checked his lung sounds, they were clear. His sats were good, his vital signs were good. He's a strong kid, but it's kind of scary.
That was a very close call. That's about as close as you can get without drowning. It's amazing.
Clearly, if he didn't have a real keen survival instinct, then he'd be underwater right now. And that's the scary thing for all of us.
TSAM dispatch, our patient is going to be transported to Scripps, La Jolla. Medic 21 to Scripps, La Jolla.
With the swimmer safely on his way to the hospital, the lifeguards prepare to close the beach for the day when they receive another startling call.
All units, we've received a 911 call of a missing swimmer off Crown Point.
An hour before dusk, lifeguards received a report from a woman who was swimming with her boyfriend at Crown Point Shores, and she turned her attention somewhere else for about 5 minutes and then couldn't see him anymore.
The swimmer was last seen in an area of Mission Bay known as Crown Point Shores. Lifeguards immediately mobilized to begin their search, deploying a fleet of boats and a search helicopter.
We have a person that's missing in the water, then we'll start an initial search with whoever we have, including the lifeguards that are working the beach. They may or may not be dive team members. As the call progresses and we get people in, we'll continue through the call and work the call with as many people as we can get on scene.
As the lifeguards search, more information comes in about the missing swimmer. He's a local who swims the same course almost every day. But today, he's gone missing along that familiar route.
We call it the golden hour, in which we have an opportunity for someone to have a chance to be revived. And so for the first hour, we're in what we call rescue mode, where we're trying to get resources to you or to the person as fast as we can.
And once we got on scene, we learned that she never really saw him go down. She never saw him in any distress. We have a general direction, but we have no real knowledge of whether he went to some direction unknown to us. So the area was expansive.
After a 2-hour rescue operation, it is now totally dark. Lifeguards make the tough decision to call off the search.
I see to all units. We're terminating the search for the night. Dive team will assemble in the morning.
Today's search is finished. But for the lifeguards, their job is far from over. At daybreak, the San Diego Lifeguard dive team assembles for their mission.
From everything we heard from the RP, this is where he goes. There's no reason to go elsewhere.
At that time, they did run a helicopter search of the area, and the boats searched the area also. Nothing found, and the determination was that this was a recovery, not a rescue mode.
Dive team is a group of individuals composed primarily of the lifeguards. We've also got the medical examiner's office, several people from the police department, and we all come together whenever we have something involving the water that requires a response, whether it's investigation, whether it's a recovery or a rescue.
What we have strived to do is just have a team that can handle anything that happens at all.
We've got underwater scooters that we use. We've got sonar that we use. We've got underwater communications, buoys, lines, grids. With all the sophisticated equipment, we have divers. And divers and their years of experience and knowing the coastline and knowing human behavior tends to be the best thing that we have.
With the dive team briefed and assembled, they head out to Mission Bay to begin their search. If the man is still in the water, there is little to no chance of survival. But until the lifeguards find him, the family on shore won't have closure.
We had to start planning for a big search, and the way that normally goes is you try to establish a last seen point, then we try to develop a search area, and then we start to determine what our search patterns are going to be underwater.
While the reporting party initially took her eyes off the missing swimmer for only 5 minutes, she waited over an hour to contact the lifeguards. This made it difficult to establish a reliable point last seen and search area. Using analysis of the tides, wind, and information from the reporting party, divers begin their search. To execute the precision search over such a vast area, the lifeguards utilize several high-tech tools, including handheld sonar.
And it's just like a radar gun that the CHP officer would use on the freeway. It will send out a narrow band of ultrasonic waves into the water, and it will return back to you in the form of a sound. A scuba tank may have a higher pingy sound, where as organic material, a body or something like that would have a different sound. That it will tell you what the distance is from that item.
The San Diego dive team set out on their search, looking high and low for the missing swimmer. If the man drowned, it's likely that his body would be on the bottom of the bay, which is where the lifeguards begin their search. Lieutenant Nick Lerma is the incident commander for the mission.
My job as the team leader is just making sure that we have the right amount of people, that we have the right equipment, and in this case, that was just air, sea, land. We plan to have a helicopter continue the aerial search, contacted some of our neighboring lifeguard agencies. Del Mar Lifeguards called them in. They had about 20 divers combined.
With the addition of Del Mar's divers, the search team is approaching 40 members. Since Mission Bay spans over 2,000 acres, the more divers, the better. While today's rescue is in the calm, shallow waters of Mission Bay, the dive team often responds to calls in another unique area of San Diego.
We have something called Wreck Alley, so there's a few wrecks right off Mission Beach that you can go to, and that's a pretty popular dive spot.
Wreck Alley is roughly 1 mile off the coast of Mission Beach. It's a large collection of sunken items made up mostly of old ships. With much of this debris scattered more than 100 feet below the surface, this is an area only for advanced divers. And the lifeguards know that one ship attracts more divers than any other in Wreck Alley.
The Yukon's a approximately 350-foot Canadian destroyer that was sank for sport diving. As the wreck disintegrates, it gets a little more challenging for some divers. And on certain days, there's a decent amount of surge moving over the wreck, which will throw you around. We don't recommend penetration dives on it unless you're a skilled, experienced wreck diver.
At the heart of the Yukon is an extremely dangerous area known as the boiler room. In 2005, Sergeant Harris ventured into the boiler room to find a missing diver.
The boiler room had been sealed, and we were under the impression that it was still sealed until we found an opening to it. It's kind of a tricky area. It's simply because the ship sits on its side. If you can imagine walking down your hallway at home, but you're walking on the walls, everything's off kilter. You're a little disoriented at times. It's 100 feet deep, and then you've got to drop through an open elevator type shaft. It's just an open shaft. And then you're in an area of a hallway, and so it's about another 40 feet down the hall. Chris Ingalls and I stopped at the entryway, and I had him hold his light into the hole and then feed me line off a rec reel. When they sank that ship, they put all the debris that could be a problem for divers into that one room. We had catwalks and wires and cables and pipes, and it all became piled by the entrance. I went in to the boiler room. I had to go through what we call the debris field. It was about a 15-foot area where I was able to kind of just tuck my hoses in, crawl through that area. Once I got through there, the room opens up into a kind of a 3-floor huge room with big boilers. The problem with closed off areas like that, every ledge, every screw, every hole has a certain amount of dust on it, or silt as we call it underwater. It's quite easy if you move rapidly to silt out a compartment where you can't see your hand, even if you're holding it to your mask. Most time fatalities, you find them on the bottom, so I was concentrating on looking on the bottom, but there was an area about 40 feet across the room that I couldn't see. Once I got to that final place where I couldn't see, I thought he would be there for sure as the last place, on the ship that I hadn't looked. And as I came around the corner, I looked down and he wasn't there. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, it's time to get out of here. And so I'm making my way back, and as I turned, something caught my eye, and I looked up, and the individual was suspended above me about 10 feet. And he'd gotten silted out and caught into some pipes and some rigging that was there. It took another 3 dives to come up with a plan and to extricate him a little bit at a time. So I went back 3 times over the next couple days to move him a little bit at a time without silting out the compartment. Yeah, that'll likely be the most challenging rescue that I'll have. It was definitely above and beyond what we normally have. We identified that before the ship was sank. That was why we didn't want divers in there. That's why we had it closed off. And unfortunately, some people decided to make access.
Back in Mission Bay, the recovery effort is still in full swing. Divers from San Diego and Del Mar are combing the sea floor. Meanwhile, helicopters search from above. Then, word comes in of a possible discovery.
Dispatch to 2 Lincoln. 2 Lincoln. We have a 911 call of a possible body sighting.
After hours of searching, the lifeguards get new information. A body has been sighted 1 mile south of an area known as Ski Beach.
It looks like from the call from last night that the individual has been discovered here off of Ski Beach.
Just stand by until we get confirmation.
So right now we have Rescue 3 on scene with the body that's been discovered.
A local fisherman was on his way out of the bay when he came across the missing swimmer floating, lifeless, on the surface.
The other boat's coming over to render assistance on getting him out of the water.
It was found by a passing vessel that was outside of our initial search area. So we were able at that point to recall the divers, go over and take care of the body.
One unique, extremely valuable member of the San Diego dive team is Deputy Medical Examiner Craig Nelson.
Until the body is found, I really just consider myself a regular member of the dive team. Then once the body is found, I'm able to contribute in my own specialty of being able to perform an on-scene examination of the body and help the lifeguards identify what all we might need to document on scene and as the body comes back to the dock, until I can meet with one of our investigators and arrange for the body to be transported back to the office.
After a brief examination of the body, lifeguards confirmed the identity of the missing swimmer. The search is over.
Guardian 1's on our RV.
While the dive team's process is very technical, at the heart of every mission is a very personal aspect.
I've been on the scene where, hey, the family's waiting on shore for us to bring their loved one back, and so we take that all into consideration.
We are successful at what we're doing most often, and it brings closure to families who are desperate for closure. It's so important because there are so many people that are affected by one death that we can bring closure to a lot of different people and extended families, and that's what we're here for.
While it's startling and it's uncomfortable at times, it's good to know that at the end of the day, you're able to give closure to somebody.
For the lifeguards, death is never an easy thing to deal with. But it is a stark reminder of the importance of the job that they do day in and day out.